Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's a little bit more of a talky video here today. I want to talk about the Welcome to Rockville 2026 lineup, as well as some thoughts on Vans Warped Tour, how they intersect with each other. And I had a bunch of folks reaching out asking when are you going to do something, do a reaction, everything like that. I haven't been feeling all that great the last couple of days post Warped Tour. It's the gift that never stops giving. But I want to be able to get this out there before Rockville actually ends up happening. And that was sarcasm, everybody. Just a little bit about Warped Tour. We weren't planning on going to Warped Tour in Orlando at all. They announced Warped Tour a year ago in 2024. And honestly, the early bird tickets were like $150, went like this. And then the next round of tickets went, and then I was like, do we end up going? What could they do with Warped Tour now after there was a gap for so many years? And would it be like what we experienced when it was an actual tour? For those that don't know, Warped Tour is now kind of a destination festival. It happens in Orlando, DC, and California. And Orlando was the last of those stops. What prompted me to get a ticket is that the resale market had completely fallen apart over the week leading into the event. So where normal face value tickets, I think the last tier when they were selling them were about like $235 or so, we paid just about $80 a ticket. And so that was less than like half of what the early bird tickets were, almost, right? So to me, it was kind of like a no-brainer. There were some bands that I was interested in seeing, but not interested in seeing at $150 or $250. And I think that's kind of a lot of what I want to talk about here today, without trying to slam one thing or another. And I always hate doing these videos because regardless of, whatever bands I cite and say, like, I'm interested in this or I'm not interested in this, it's always the wrong opinion for somebody that's watching the video. I'm always wrong about something because somebody wants to like something else or does like something else. And that's the way these festivals go. There's hundreds of bands so that you could choose the band that you like to see or the people that you want to see, or you don't go because there's bands that you don't like playing the bill, or they don't have the bands that you like playing the bill. And, it's personal preference. Quick summary of the experience at Warped Tour. And by the way, I hope you guys liked the experience video that we posted for Warped Tour. When I do these videos of experience and they have like clips of bands and all that stuff, and I've been doing them for Rockville for the better part of the last 11 years, and Warped Tour as well when they used to tour, and now back, for this destination festival, I don't monetize any of that. So any of the shooting and editing and posting or anything like that, at risk of copyright strike or anything, I don't own the copyright or the IP for any of that stuff, so I don't monetize any of that stuff, and I only do it because I love to share what we were out doing. And more than anything, I want to encourage everybody to be able to get out and enjoy live music. These bands don't make any money these days. I am a dinosaur when it comes to music and thinking, either holding a vinyl record, before they were called vinyl, and it was just, holding a record or a CD or a cassette or whatever else, and you'd go to the store, spend your, $5, $7, $10 or $15 on a CD or something, and the band made a chunk of that revenue. They make nothing these days from streaming, and the only way that they're making money is by a small portion of a concert ticket, not even for these festivals, mind you. For the most part, for these festivals, the only way we're making money, at least the non-headliner bands, is by you going out and buying merch, buy a shirt, buy a hat, buy whatever, go meet the band and things like that. And that's kind of the spirit of what Warped Tour has always historically been. It's been a DIY festival, and bands have always been out meeting their fans, or bands have been meeting but their fans by their merch tents and everything, taking pictures and everything, to try to build a relationship and get you invested in that band. And honestly, I was really happy that that spirit of the Warped Tour past still existed. Every band had its own tent around the different stages of the event for Warped Tour. And a lot of bands were out doing meet and greets and, signing things, taking pictures and things like that. And when other bands were playing around the different stages, other folks were just out walking and meandering around in the crowd, and you could spot anybody. Biggest summary point that I could take away from watching the Warped Tour this past weekend is that Vans Warped Tour and the promoters are eating Rockville's lunch. Plain and simple. They've made a destination festival They have a lot of bands that appeal for a variety of age ranges, and they had it 2 days, 8 stages, spread across a pretty wide area. Not the greatest area in Orlando either. It's pretty treacherous needing to walk around that area to get to the venue. But Orlando did offer free shuttle buses, or you had paid shuttle buses from different hotels if you were actually coming in for the destination event. But overall, out of doubt, Vans Warped Tour is eating Rockville's lunch. And for everybody that's going to jump on that and say, oh, there's two different things, or Rockville is so much better and everything else, Rockville announced their lineup for 2026 this year, and they did so intentionally waiting until the Tuesday following Warped Tour's conclusion, because so many bands that just played Warped Tour are actually playing Rockville. There's actually, and I do have cheat sheet notes here, there's 24 bands playing Rockville that just played Warped Tour. So that's 15% of the lineup for Rockville are repeats for what just happened at a lower pay rate or price per ticket. And I'll get into how much like price per band and things like that in a minute. But the vibe at Warped felt, you know, if you've gone to Rockville in the past, when it was in Jacksonville, there was I think there was a really unique vibe or a feeling to it where the stages were all kind of spread out and they were all kind of like cityscape type stages. And for a while, Rockville did have like at least 2 main stages like right next to each other, so you could tag on and off for the different bands that were playing. Warped Tour did that this year with 8 stages, and every set of stages were kind of like right next to each other, which was amazing. So you want to be able to camp a stage, you could watch the different bands coming on and off. Tons of overlap because the bands that they did have at Warped Tour were all, you know, overlapping and things like that. You know, 4 out of 8 stages were going at any given time. But give you some rundown here. Welcome to Rockville's been in place for the last 14 years. We've gone to 11 of those years, and I think we have videos up for those 11 of the years as well. Well before anybody was doing videos at Rockville, we were doing videos at Rockville, and also still not monetizing those videos at Rockville because we just want to share the experience. But Rockville at this point is, at least for the 2025 version, they had 230,000 people over 4 days, which averaged about 57,500 a day. Warped Tour this year, at least in Orlando, they had 80,000 people a day. So there was considerably more people going to Warped Tour on any given day. But there were so many other things to see besides the bands that were even playing. So many bands playing at one time, and they also still had skating going on, BMX going on, dirt bike jumping going on, all kinds of stuff, all vendor area and things like that. Stuff that I think Rockville started to do early on in the creation of Rockville, especially more in the Jacksonville time, that they just don't do now. Like Rockville in the past had like an FYE tent, they had the music tent, they had all kinds of bands that would do meet and greets and things like that. And none of that stuff exists now. So all of the stuff that I love or other people love about a Warped Tour and the fact that it feels so DIY and bands really feel that much more intimate and growing a relationship with you, they abandoned that at Rockville over the years. So ticket prices, again, Warped was $159 or $150 to start, and these numbers might be slightly off, and everybody always jumps on me when I'm like $5 off from something. Rockville for 4 days right now, I think it's $425. The next price point is about $450. Warped Tour had 133 acts over 8 stages. Rockville had 160 acts over 5 stages. The price per day, what it works out to for Warped Tour would be about $80 a day, and for Rockville is about $112 a day. If you break it down to price per band, if you were to able to see everybody, and you can't see everybody because there's just so much overlap, but if you were to see every band that's playing on the bill at Warped, it would work out to about $1.20 per band, and at Rockville it's about $2.81 per band. There are bigger bands at Rockville, and headliner typey bands, and this is where things get a little bit more subjective and ambiguous. And I want to, this is where I get into the lineup a little bit more. The bands that you like are not the same bands that I like in some cases, and the bands that I like are not the same bands that you like. I just want to set that as the precedent, right? So there are bigger bands, and by bigger, I would mean bands that headline their own stadiums or arenas and things like that. And I realize a lot of these bands end up headline arenas. One of the biggest problems or things that I see when there's complaints about lineups of any particular festival or tour is the fact that they can't gear everything to every age. And at this point, like I said earlier in the video, I'm a dinosaur. I have aged out of what should be selling to the majority of festival goers at this point. And I think a lot of people have aged out, but they're still sitting there like, I want to go see 70-year-old Iron Maiden or 70-year-old Kiss and everything like that. There's not a problem with that because I want to see those bands too. But the realistic thing is that's not what's drawing in the youth and the majority of people that are trying to grow a festival year over year. And I realize that, and I'm fine with that. So in essence, that kind of means that the lineup is not necessarily appealing to me, although there's a lot of things or a lot of bands on this lineup that are appealing, just not in an overall sense, right? If that makes sense at all. And the other piece that I want to talk about is the fact that Rockville, for the bands that they bring out, and it's seemingly year over year in a lot of cases, because a lot of these bands are repeats, they became a destination festival along the line, right? So Rockville wasn't always just Rockville. When it was in Jacksonville, you had Rockville, and you also had Fort Rock that was in kind of Southwest Florida. And the bands on those bills, when it was only a 2-day festival in both of those places, they would flip-flop. So the bands that played Saturday at Fort Rock would play Sunday at Rockville, and the bands that played Saturday at Rockville would play Sunday at Fort Rock. They merged those two pieces together to make Rockville that much more of a destination show, but along the way they added or bought other festivals to merge into the Danny Wimmer Presents suite of festivals, including Aftershock, Incarceration, Louder Than Life, Sonic Temple. And I think a lot of the problem is that if you're building a destination festival like you are trying to do with Rockville, and you also have created a destination festival with almost the same exact bands, or the bands from maybe the prior year, and you have it in another state, the attendance or desire to want to get to one or the other, you're cannibalizing yourself. So what do you do to break up some of the monotony? This past year, or this past Rockville season in 2025, they really started introducing younger bands, like these Warped Tour type bands, which is what they just announced this week. Here's my laptop. I need to use more cheat sheet type stuff here to go through the lineup. And again, 24 or more of these bands that they announced this week, they just played Warped Tour. So I'm going to go through the lineup and just give some opinions here. Guns N' Roses is headlining on Thursday with Godsmack and Alice Cooper and Black Label Society, John Bonham, Buck Cherry, Fozzy. Guns N' Roses at this point, when I started thinking, there would be one big band, classic metal, that they would bring to the festival. And once I saw that it wasn't Iron Maiden, I thought immediately, oh no, it's going to be Guns N' Roses. I'd be hard pressed to find people that are bigger fans of a GNR type era type metal band at this point that's still actively going to shows as much as me or Mary. But Guns N' Roses, while they sounded incredible when they first came back with Axl, Slash, and Duff, and they did their stadium run, and then they did arena runs, I've seen them for years, from the 80s, and then the 90s, and then even the replacement lineup, with DJ and everybody. They do not sound like they sounded 10 years ago. They certainly don't sound the way that they sounded 30 years ago. And Axl Rose at this point sounds like Mickey Mouse more than he sounds like Axl Rose. And that's trying to be as kind as I can. So would I want to sit through a Guns N' Roses headlining act at this point in 2026? No. If the tickets were free, for sure, I'd go and watch them for free. Would I spend what equates to be like $450 to go for the multi-day tickets? There's no way. Alice Cooper I would pay to go see every day, any day. We just saw Alice play a co-headlining show with Judas Priest in Atlanta 2 months ago. The other bands on this Thursday list are Five Finger Death Punch, Stained. There's a host of bands here. Ice Nine Kills, which we just saw. I would be interested in seeing Ice Nine again. They put on a great show for the parts that are played live. Atreyu is playing. Catch Your Breath, I think, is awful. Crown the Empire is playing. I like them. They just played. Also, and then the bands that kind of get towards the smaller stages are the bands that are more of interest to me. But a lot of these bands are just played Warped. Friday, Foo Fighters is headlining again. I don't know why we need to see Foo Fighters again as a headliner. They're perfectly fine, but they don't move me to buy a ticket in 2026. Offspring is playing again. They have played Warped Tour. They've played Rockville now, I think probably like 5 out of the last 11 years. I'm just thinking. The Warning is playing. I love The Warning. I'm glad that they're getting a bigger spot on the stage. On the other stages, Turnstile, Parkway Drive, Hollywood Undead again, Tom Morello again. Just to put in perspective, in some of the other stops of the Danny Wimmer Festival Tour, you're getting bands like Anthrax and Public Enemy on the same day, where I'm sure they're going to get together and end up playing like Bring the Noise, which would be phenomenal. But a lot of these bands, like it's just the same things over and over. The heavier bands, which I'm really into, like Creator is on the list, Death Angels on the list, Dying Fetus. Somewhere in here I saw Deicide, and I can't see them at this point on the list, but I know that they must be playing unless I'm making it up. But those bands I'd love to see, but I'm not paying the amount of money that the festival charges to see it. And Bring Me the Horizon is headlining. That's one of those bands that has been polarizing. The younger audience wants to see it, and that's perfect. I'm not interested in Bring Me the Horizon. They're fine, but I don't need to see them. This is what I mean about the lineups being subjective, because I've seen online, 9 times out of 10, people are saying the lineup's a banger, and that's great. Motionless in White is playing. We just saw them. Black Veil Brides is playing. We just saw them. These are bands that just played on Warped Tour. Breaking Benjamin playing Warped Tour. I'm playing Rockville again. Lamb of God, always good to see. Simple Plan, Switchfoot, Avatar I really wanted to see. So when they first started announcing bands and, Avatar was announced, I was like, holy cow, dude, I want to go. Warped Tour, Rockville is starting to really look good, with Avatar potentially playing. And then on the last day, the smaller stages like Sepultura is playing again, Hatebreed. I would go see these bands like any day of the week. Architects, love those guys too. There's the second stage on Sunday is A Day to Remember, Yellow Card. They just played Warped Tour, and then the headliner on Sunday is My Chemical Romance. I don't have anything against My Chemical Romance, but I know that I saw them on Warped Tour 20 years ago, along with Fall Out Boy and Avenged Sevenfold and Paramore and other bands when they were first breaking out. And the songs that they'd be playing on Sunday are not much different than the songs that they were playing when I saw them at Warped Tour at that time. And I know My Chemical Romance just sold out like stadiums and stuff too. And I think for the people that like a lot of that Warped Tour type lineup, would be great. But I think a lot of these bands that are playing, they just played Warped, or Warped Tour tickets went on sale today for next year, for 2026. I think you could probably see a lot of these bands play Warped Tour again. I think Rockville over the years has catered to more classic or bigger arena, 80s, 90s arena rock type bands, and there's not a lot of it on there to draw me in. So I'd say for me, it's kind of a pass for this year. And I would talk about the last factor here is this past Rockville in 2025, I struggled in the heat. And for years I was saying like, oh, it's not that bad. And, you know, you can just drink free water and this and that. Like, I want to say like the first day when we were watching Exodus, I felt like I was going to fall and hit the pavement. And I had to go lay down, and I literally passed out. And that could be a pussy thing to say, but I know from talking to the folks that worked like paramedic-wise and everything that they had more than 2 to 3 times the amount of people pass out this current 2025 Rockville year than they have in prior years. It is ungodly hot, or it potentially rains. Having this festival in Daytona in May is the pits. And the biggest argument from Danny Wimmer and everybody that you can't have this festival in November is because of hurricane insurance, or you can't have it during the other parts of the year. Warped Tour just had their festival in November in Orlando and worked their way around, trying to make the best out of the geographic landscape that they have. When you go to Rockville, you are walking on the surface of the sun. And there is not a lot of shade. There's zero difference between VIP or general admission or Owners Club if you want to be able to see a band up close, because the VIP and Owners Club are so far away from the stages. It's just not for me at this point. I think I've aged out. So, I'm going to look at different contests to potentially win tickets so I can peek in and out for the bands that I am actually interested in. But as far as buying tickets, as of right now, this will be the first Rockville that since 2014 that I am not planning to attend at this point. So things can always change, like I said, or maybe the resale market will drop out like it did for Warped Tour. But, as far as today, if I look at my wallet, I would be planning to buy tickets for Warped Tour in November of 2026, based off of the experience that I had in 2025. And I will not be looking to buy tickets for Rockville in 2026 based off of the experience I had in 2025 and the lineup that's out there. So that's it. What do you guys think? Is this a stacked lineup? Is this the best lineup that Rockville has had? I've seen that posted many times. Or is this lineup just not hitting? Let me know. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Thank you very much for all of your likes, comments, and subscriptions. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Have a great night. See you guys.